Spectre and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donder and Blitzen. But do you recall, what's that? The most famous reindeer of all. Come on! Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
Now back to 95.7 The Game. Here's Rick Tittle and Ryan Covey.
Are these the Fat Boys or the Chicago Bears?
That sounds like DMX to me, baby. X gonna give it to you. What?
You throw a little John in there, too?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I thought you maybe get a little ha.
Okay.
All right. Someone who says those things in his sleep is our next guest, Grant Cohn. It's time for the Cohn Drill.
Okay.
Or the Cohn Grill, where you can get a nice steak.
Get that foreman jumping off.
I can't talk today.
That's
all right. Here, wait, watch this. Slap myself awake. Grant is with us. We always love bringing in Grant. He covers the 49ers like a glove. And Grant, I noticed on your Twitter you called yourself Iggy. Could you explain?
That's what everyone called me in school, and I was feeling silly. I was calling myself Indiana Cohn because I was watching Indiana Jones. And I was thinking, who the hell is Indiana? What kind of name is that? And I was thinking I should be named Indiana Cohn. And I was thinking, maybe I should just put my old nickname up and see if anyone gets the reference. But I have a brother who's 12 years older than me, and that's the name he gave me when I was like 9 months old. It's an old story, but he doesn't call me that anymore. You can call me that if you like. You can call me Indiana if you like.
All right. Either way, you were not the sixth man that helped the Warriors win their first title, correct?
I was Iggy before he was Iggy.
Oh, there you go. All right.
I was like Iggy back in 1991.
The 49ers will lose this game today if they do not do what better?
If they do not do what better? If they don't get the ball to someone besides George Kittle. If they just do the thing they did last week, where you run the ball with Tevin Coleman for whatever reason and only throw to George Kittle, they'll lose. Because the Rams now have Jalen Ramsey, who they didn't have the first time. And Ramsey can actually cover Kittle anytime he's outside the formation. Anytime he's not playing tight end and he's in the slot or out at wide receiver, Ramsey will be on him. And Ramsey will do a good job. He might have shut him down, but he'll hold his own at the very least. So if the Niners can just spread the ball around like they did against the Saints, actually throw the ball to Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel, they should win fairly easily because the Rams seem like they don't have anything to play for. Last week was a must-win game for them, and they didn't even show up.
3 sacks in the last 3 games for this defense that was absolutely on an epic pace through the first 7 weeks. And, yes, there's been injuries, but this is the sport. Every team goes through this type of attrition, next man up, all those catchphrases. But can you put any tangible explanation why they find it so hard to get to the QB?
Well, they've gone against Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Lamar Jackson. I think that's been part of it. Those are 3 of the toughest guys to sack. And then the other thing is they don't have Dee Ford anymore. That's a big deal. I think he was maybe the worst of the 4 pass rushers, but maybe also the most important because he's the fastest. He would get there first, force the quarterback to hold on to the ball, move his feet, reset, and then give everyone else a chance to get their hits in. And I think the fact that he's gone, Blair's gone, Ronald Blair, DJ Jones, you're seeing now Nick Bosa and Buckner and Armstead going from 70% of the snaps to 90 to 95% of the snaps. And they're just exhausted. Every team's exhausted, but this defense was really built on having a fresh, deep defensive line with the rotation of players, and it made the linebackers and cornerbacks and safeties seem better than they really were. Not that they're bad. It just supercharged the entire defense, and now you take away the depth on the D-line, and it really there's a trickle-down effect on the rest of the defense, and it looks kind of mediocre right now at best.
Sherman's going to play today, Grant. How much can they expect from him, and just how healthy do you think he is? It seems kind of quick.
He's a champion. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. It's not like he's that spry and fast anyway, even when he's not hurt. What he's on the field for is his smarts, his leadership, his communication, and his playmaking ability. He might even intercept the pass today. I mean, today, if he's in the right place at the right time, they need him because they're a very young defense without him that makes a lot of mental mistakes when they have the backups in. He's going to be key. But the thing with them is they don't really throw to Robert Woods. Like, Robert Woods isn't that big of a threat. Neither is Brandon Cooks. You got to stop Cooper Kupp in the slot, and you got to stop this tight end Tyler Higbee.
Yeah.
So really, this might be one of those games where Richard Sherman's kind of just watching and not being tested.
When you think about the Rams, who have really defensively only had maybe 3 bad games, and you mentioned that bizarre showing against the Cowboys, I kind of look at Phillips and others and Donald and the actual protagonists out there, Ramsey, to actually turn this thing around, don't you think?
No, the only thing, they can't stop the run anymore. They gave up more than 200 yards last week. They gave up more than 200 yards on the ground to the Ravens 4 weeks ago. The Niners have a terrific run game. Mostert's really good. Breida's coming off an injury and is starting to play better. I think this is going to be one of those games where the Niners just run for 150, 160 yards, wear down Aaron Donald and Clay Matthews that way, and give them very limited opportunities to get their hits in on Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Clay Matthews is a terrible run defender.
Yeah.
And they should be running at him every single time he's on the field on 1st and 10. Their inside linebacker, Troy Reeder, is an undrafted rookie. He's had like 11 missed tackles this year. Their strong safety, Taylor Rapp from Washington's a rookie. They're really, really exploitable. I think the Cowboys showed that last week. I think the Niners' game plan is run the ball, control the clock, keep Jared Goff off the field, and make Aaron Donald a run defender, and I think that's a really good strategy this week.
You know, Grant, we know the 49ers have exceeded all expectations this year, but still a lot of work to be done if they want to, ultimately arrive at their goal. The Rams, I think, could be considered kind of a cautionary tale. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They're not going to the playoffs this year. The moral of that story is success can be very fleeting in the NFL. Is this kind of a firsthand reminder to the 49ers? You better strike while the iron's hot. We ain't trying to be the Rams at this time next year.
No question. And, the Rams, to me, they paid the wrong people.
Yeah,
they gave
no
all
doubt.
the money to Gurley, to Jared Goff. I mean, paying Aaron Donald was smart, but those two, you're tying up all your money into people who are not difference makers and may even be subpar players. The Niners are in a similar position because they have a lot of people coming up that deserve money, or they think they deserve money. So the Niners have to decide which ones they're going to give it to. Are they going to give Eric Armstead a 5-year extension of the franchise tag, or nothing? Are they going to give DeForest Buckner a 5-year extension, or can they get both of them? What are they going to do with George Kittle? I mean, Jimmy Ward. I think they have to decide who's worth the big bucks, and it's possible that the quality of the roster may never be as good as it is this year. It came out of nowhere. No one really expected the Niners to be this dominant, but maybe since a lot of these players are on their rookie deals, this will be, if we look back, the year where they had their best chance to win a Super Bowl because Eric Armstead was relatively cheap and DeForest Buckner was making, $6 million, $8 million, something like that, and George Kittle's making $500,000. It's just kind of their window right now.
Grant Cohn is with us. Tittle and Covey, 95.7 The Game. Grant with the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. A couple more questions as he covers the Niners. The Niners this year and until last week avoided what I think every other team goes through, and that is just a game where for some reason they just, whether it was a mental hiccup or a subconscious victory in their own minds, but it was one of those games you think, yeah, we'll win that one, and we didn't. And they were able to avoid that. And even we know their losses were by the skin of their teeth. And so I would think if for some reason the Niners go out there again and look flat and lose this, then you'd have 2 straight weeks of this. And I just think there's no way Kyle's going to let that happen. What do you think?
I think there's no way Kyle's going to let that happen. The way I saw it last week's game was coaching fatigue. I mean, his game plan against the Saints was one of the best I've ever seen, right? It was like shock and awe warfare. They had everything, reverses, wide receiver passes. They scored 48 points. He put a lot of energy and creativity into that game plan, and then it looked like he got back from a week-long road trip to Sarasota, Florida, and said, I just don't have it this week. I'm tired. I don't feel that creative. It's just the Falcons. Maybe we can just win throwing to George Kittle 20 times, and I can kind of take a break because I'm a little bit fried. It happens to coaches. I don't think the average fan realizes what a grind it is to be a coach and do that game planning 80 hours a week. I think that's what it was. He felt like I need a mental break. Let's try to win in a very conservative way, which is to me a mistake to take that approach in December. Maybe you can do something like that in November or October, but you're really close to the playoffs and you want to have some momentum. But what I want to say is I believe he's going to have one of these brilliant offensive game plans tonight like he did against the Packers and Saints. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, it would be right on time, too, and just what the doctor ordered. You mentioned that they're going to want to run the rock quite a bit today, and we know that that's what they're best at. How are you feeling about the O-line right now? I know Staley Didn't look great early last week, kind of grew into the game. Ben Garland taking over for Weston Richburg. Obviously, some concerns at the interior of the line. How concerned are you with the state of their O-line right now?
Well, to me, it's a pretty good offensive line in terms of run blocking. Even Ben Garland, I think they all do a very good job in the outside zone and the stuff that Kyle Shanahan wants to do in the run game. But in the pass game, I think all 5 of them have been exposed a little bit the last couple of weeks. I think their best pass protector right now is Mike McGlinchey, who's more of a run blocking specialist. Joe Staley is struggling to sort of change directions. He's threatened by speed. He'll be going against Dante Fowler in this game, and he's going to be nervous that Fowler can beat him around the edge. He's going to overset to the edge and create, counter lanes to the inside. That's how we got beat last week. Mike Person's hurt. Ben Garland struggles in pass protection, and so does Laken Tomlinson. So the key for this game is to just run the ball as much as possible. And I think the Rams will make that quite easy on him. If this becomes a drop back passing contest between Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo, it could just come down to which offensive line protects better, which is kind of a toss-up. The Niners should be able to play to their strengths and run the ball.
You mentioned that game down in the Crescent City and the bag of magic tricks that Kyle threw out. One thing that I think is really tantamount to his coaching is that when McKinnon went down yet again, the poor guy, that there was no panic like, where the Colts had to go out and get Richardson from the Browns. We need a bell cow. But they took a special teams guy in Mostert. They took a guy in Breida who proved himself last year. They went out and they had got Coleman for this very reason. And all 3 of those guys have at least 500 yards rushing. I mean, it's really, I think, credit to the players and to the coach who said, no, I can win with these guys I have right here.
It's to the entire organization. Whoever's finding these undrafted free agents is just, it's amazing. Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert in particular, 2 of the better running backs in the league, and they were both undrafted. So it's a credit to the scouts, but it's also a credit to the coaches for developing them and having the confidence and foresight that they would perform well. All I want to say is, going into tonight, I'd like to see from Kyle Shanahan lean more on Mostert and Breida and stop starting the game with Tevin Coleman on the field, getting the first play to him. I understand last week it almost felt like, you know what, we're going to beat the Falcons. Let's see if we can get Tevin Coleman because he struggled for the last month. And it'd be nice to have one more weapon in the playoffs. They gave him a shot. For whatever reason, he's not particularly playing well, except for that one run he had, which was really blocked perfectly. I'd like to see him, Kyle Shanahan, just go with his best personnel. Don't worry about which player's getting paid the most. Play Mostert and Breida, the 2 undrafted free agents, because I think they've undoubtedly deserved it.
What about Quan Alexander? Sounds like the Hot Boys could be getting reunited come playoff time. Is this a real thing?
Definitely a real thing. Absolutely. He just needs 8 weeks removed from his injury. He's going to get it. I think he'd be able to come back for either the wild card round or the division round. And if he wants to play, I'm sure they'll let him play. It's just an issue of how is his pectoral muscle? Has it healed fully, and would it be at risk of rupturing again if he played? I think there have been players who have done this in the past. I think he's clearly motivated to do it, and he's a leader on the team like Richard Sherman. I get kind of the feeling with certain players, if they want to play, they play. With Richard Sherman, he decides he plays, he's on the field. If Quan Alexander wants to play, he's on the field, and I'm sure with all the money they're paying him, they'd be happy to see him back.
It's interesting, Grant, when I think about Todd Gurley, and a couple years ago, if you talked about who are the top 5 backs in the NFL, we all would have said Todd Gurley. Then the kind of mysterious playoffs and Super Bowl with him, and it seems like whenever they play the Niners, he's always hurt. And then now not one game this year with 100 yards rushing, but the talent is there. It just seems like we're going to have to wait for the 30 for 30 to find out what's going on with Todd Gurley. What do you think of him?
When I watch him on film, I was watching him yesterday, I don't see the explosion anymore. Like, I see a lot of what I see from Tevin Coleman, which is a lack of burst and an indecision at the line of scrimmage. This outside zone scheme that Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert and Terrell Davis did really well with. You have to be decisive and just make one cut and go. And that's what Mostert's doing really well right now, and Coleman isn't. When Coleman gets to the line, he starts rocking back and forth and slowing down, and he can't figure out where to go. He's not reading the play correctly, and that's what I see from Todd Gurley. Also, he's got an arthritic left knee, and it seems like he doesn't really like cutting off of it very hard like he used to. It's almost like when you have a toothache and you don't want to bite down that hard into your food because you know it's going to hurt. You're anticipating the pain, and you kind of baby it. That's what I see from him on film. I think it's a shame. It seems like he's not quite the guy he used to be, and you could see it with how they use him. Like, in the past, he was a great running back, but he was, to me, most effective on the screen passes. those were where he would be having an ability to go 75 yards for a touchdown. And he was their most explosive player on offense. He was their big play threat. Now they just kind of check it down to him. He'll like run out, run a curl route, catch the ball with his back to the defense, turn around, get tackled for a 4-yard gain. He's not a big play threat at all anymore. And that to me is basically sums up the Rams. He was the identity of their team. He was the best player on their team, their biggest threat. And now he's not a threat at all. And they're just kind of a mediocre outfit.
Yeah, boy, it's just been incredible to watch, too. And it's happened. The decline of Todd Gurley has happened so rapidly. Hey, K1's coming back this week in the slot. He's been really good this year. Obviously, Sherm getting back in there as well. Last week, Julio on those drag routes was just killing them. And you mentioned the big weapons for Goff, who loves to throw underneath, will be the ascending Tyler Higbee and, of course, Cooper Kupp. How are they going to slow these guys down in the slot today? I mean, obviously, it's going to be a focus, and it burned them last week, but easier said than done.
They got to play more zone coverage. I think what Robert Saleh was thinking with like all those backups on the field at once, like zone coverage would be dangerous because all it takes is one of those guys to get the assignment wrong or read the play wrong, and now you got huge vacancies in your defense. Sure. Better to just keep it simple and play man to man because there's less thinking in man to man. The problem with that is no one could cover Julio Jones man to man, and then you start bracketing him, and then there would still be mistakes. So I think this week when you have all the experience back in the secondary with Richard Sherman and K'Wan Williams, Robert Saleh can call zone coverage and feel like at least everyone's going to be where they're supposed to be. And at that point, the crossing routes won't hurt you because they'll just be running into tackles and linebackers. So I think they'll be able to go back to their identity on defense, which is cover 3, 7 defenders playing zone coverage, 4 rushing the quarterback. And if they get to Jared Goff, that's checkmate. I think they probably should. If they can't get to Jared Goff today, you have to really think there's something very wrong with the Niners' defense, and you got to wonder how far they're going to go in the playoffs. But I expect them to win this game pretty convincingly.
Grant Cohn with the Santa Rosa Press, a Democrat, also known as the OI, the original Iggy.
That was a good show.
Yeah, the Cohn drill. Hey, listen, we always appreciate it, and I'm telling you right now, I've said this to writers in the past, in the last 30 years, you're going to be on the radio someday, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate you. I didn't expect you to say that. Thank you.
No, seriously, you're gonna get on here regularly, some way, somehow. Thanks for your time, man, and enjoy the game.
That's so nice of you to say. Really appreciate coming on with you as always. Take care.
All right, that's Grant Cohn, everybody. He just brings it every damn time.
Yeah, no, Grant Sharp, man, no doubt about it.
What's up, Ryan? It's G. Cohn from the City of Dope.
That was an old one. That was great.
Let me ask you this, Ryan Covey, Rick Tittle, Ryan Covey. And by the way, the lines are open at 888-9.